Hi, I'm Susanna Bowling, and this is live from the Hotel Edison. My guest today is mostly known for doing Jersey Boys, but he does more. He's got two albums out, right?
Yes.
Two albums, and he's going to be performing at 54 Below coming up with his album. We're talking Michael Longoria. Let's start with a big question. Jersey Boys, are you ever going to live that down?
You know, it's funny when I first was cast in Jersey Boys, somebody asked me, "Is this your big break?" I was in my early 20s. I was like, "I hope not," because I was thinking that I would get something way bigger and stuff. But as I've learned, Jersey Boys has been such a huge part of my life that it's kind of like let me fly after Jersey Boys was done for me. After the life after has been great because I've been able to expand on that knowledge of music and sing other songs from the 60s.
Is that what you want to do, is sing songs from the 60s or branch out of that era?
I also do original music. You mentioned my album, Merry Christmas, Darling. And on that album, I do have a song that I wrote called Marry Me This Christmas, Merry. But it's also a double play on the word, which is also Merry, because it's kind of a proposal song about meeting somebody at a Christmas party and knowing that you're going to marry them one day.
Ooh, can we have a sample of that?
Yeah, so it starts, Christmas party, meeting my baby there. Christmas party, and I'm running late. Meeting you there for our first date. I'll be the one wearing the candy cane pin. I'll be the one unaware that the rest of my life will begin with you.
Love it.
Thank you so much.
Love it. What made you?
I'm going to sing the whole thing with you.
No, you could have sung the whole thing. I would have been happy. I've been serenaded on this show, and I like it. What are you doing now? I know that you've got a new album coming out. I know you're going to 54 Below.
Yes, I'm working on the 54 Below show. I just finished picking out all the different songs. It's called A Very Broadway Kind of Christmas. So I wanted to have some Broadway songs in there. When I was growing up, Broadway songs kind of were introduced to me around Christmas time always. For example, like when I was really young, I was laying on the floor as a child at my grandma's house as they were making tamales in the background, as one does when you're little, in Los Angeles. And I remember it was Christmas time. There was a lovely little tree, and in the background, West Side Story was playing, right, the musical. And you're a kid, you don't realize that it's odd that people are singing and dancing. You're like, oh, this is just another part of the world, right, you're being introduced to. But year after year, around Christmas time, it would always be a new musical adventure, things on television or being parts of shows in high school. And it's just kind of been a wonderful mixture for me to have Christmas music also associated with Broadway and musical theater.
You mentioned tamales. What is your background? Because my friend's Guatemalan, and they make tamales for Christmas.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I grew up a very Mexican heritage, but although when I found out on, 23andMe, I found out that I'm 53% Portuguese as well, which was kind of a family shock. We were always told that we were part Irish, so I grew up saying, I'm part Irish. So this is why parts of, my uncle and my grandma have light eyes. It's because we're part Irish. And so, when I did the 23andMe test, I was like so ready to see finally, how much of me is Irish so I could finally tell people. And it was like 0%. I was like, oh, okay. But then this new discovery about the Portuguese element, which is pretty interesting, to discover something that I never thought about or never had introduced to me.
Do you ever incorporate your nationalities into your music and into what you do?
You know what? When I grew up singing mariachi music. So I grew up actually singing in Spanish, although I didn't speak Spanish at the time. I grew up, very American kid in Los Angeles, listening to Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston. But when it came to family time and family music, there was always, Mexican mariachi music in the background. One of my first singing experiences in front of people, I was a little boy, and it was Christmas time. And my Uncle Fernie got a guitar out and started singing Feliz Navidad, of course, so stereotypical, but it was a perfect song to introduce me to the family, I guess, that I was singing.
Where in LA are you from? And did you ever go to Alavera Street?
I love Alvera Street, and literally every time I go back home, I take my mom there. There's this lovely little restaurant. Well, there's like three of them, but there's one that we like. I don't even know the name of the restaurant, but we know it by sight. It's right down that little alleyway of Alvera Street, and we always get our little mole enchiladas. But I grew up in like East Los Angeles. I went to the High School for the Arts, which is on the Cal State LA campus. But then I also would bus down to Pomona where our family lived. So I spent a lot of my time in both areas. And then during high school, I would spend times in another city doing theater projects.
Which one?
Glendale was sometimes, West Covina was sometimes, different, whatever, any kind of outlet that I could, be a part of, I would try to do. I remember being stretching in dance class at the High School for the Arts in Los Angeles, and I was maybe a junior, and there was a senior. She was doing her stretches, and everybody's like, "Oh, what are you doing when you graduate? What are you doing when you graduate?" And I was like, I kept my ears, listening in, and I remember she was saying, "Well, I'm going to New York because that's where Broadway is," and I just remember being like, "That's what I got to do with New York." I had no idea what New York was. I had no idea what Broadway was. I had just been introduced to to West Side Story and Chorus Line. Those are the only two musicals that I had ever seen or heard of or anything, like in person, And all of a sudden, this girl was saying this New York story. So I knew that was the place to be.
Did you do any of the singing groups in California?
No, because I was more involved in like theater and playing roles and discovering that.
No, I did Young Americans, and then I did Up with People for a nanosecond.
Yeah. No, I remember my first live concert that I saw though in California was Hanson. Oh yeah. Yeah, and NSYNC as well, and that's that was the big start of all the boy bands, the resurgence of the '90s boy bands, which was a totally interesting way to be influenced sonically. When
you got to New York, tell me your journey up to Jersey Boys.
Oh, wow. Well, I went to NYU, Tisch School of the Arts. I studied drama, and I graduated, and I immediately went to Ellen's Stardust Diner and got a job waiting tables and singing. Yeah, well, I knew other people that had worked there, and they just said it was flexible. You could wait tables and also audition. The other thing that I discovered that was awesome about it was that you can sing songs all day and practice your audition material, which is basically what I did for my audition for Hairspray.
Was that your first?
Yeah, that was my first Broadway musical, was Hairspray, and it was actually booked by a song that I practiced over and over.
We want a hint of that.
It was Run Around Sue. Here's my story, it's sad but true, about a girl that I once knew. She took my love and ran around with every single guy in town.
Who did you play, Link?
No, I was the swing, so I played everybody. I played every single body. And after like about year 1.5 of Hairspray, they started adding on all the girl tracks as well. I mean, I would still go in as a guy, but they had me learn so many tracks that they're like, just learn all the girl tracks as well, just in case. And sure enough, there were shows where all the guys were out, and also like 2 of the girls were out, and I had to go on. And Brenda became Bobby, or Tammy became Tommy, and it was like the funniest thing, especially when I went on for Tammy, because if you saw Broadway's Hairspray, Tammy at the end of Nicest Kids in Town, she does her little turn and she does the splits right into center stage, and they hadn't talked to me about that part, like what I should do, and I was like, oh wait, that part's coming up. What am I gonna do? And sure enough, the 21-year-old me was twirl, twirl, split. It was like, I got to do it once in Broadway history, so it was pretty awesome to do that.
I cannot even imagine doing that many tracks. Yeah. I did Nonsense, and I originally came in as the swing, but I was going in almost ASAP for Robert Ann, and oh my God, I thought I was going to die, and there was a time that the flu was going around, so I was going in for different characters, like every performance. It drove me insane.
Yeah. That was hard. The good thing about Hairspray was that, like, if you went on for Any of the Nicest Kids, you did the same exact dances, just on a different number or with a different partner. So those were the notes that I had to like really write on. I had a little booklet of all my notes.
I think that's
Stage plot.
Harder.
Oh yeah, it was hard, but it. Certain things helped. Like if I wrote on a piece of paper, Brad says this, and I'm like, okay, so in that moment in the show, you got to be on this mark according to this piece of paper, because I would watch the show when I was not on, to take those notes.
And what happened after Hairspray?
Well, I'd heard that they were looking for people for Jersey Boys.
Oh, this came right after.
This was, well, I had given notice because I got cast as Chino in West Side Story. And I had asked Hairspray for a leave of absence for 2 months to do this regional show. And they were like, nope, that's not going to happen. So we're like, oh, gosh. So I had to make the choice, right? Do I leave the security of this hit Broadway musical? I'd been in it for 2 years already. But I was swinging. I was in the background. I was always, in the ensemble. And here was an offer to play a role. And ironically, it was in West Side Story, the first musical I ever saw during Christmas time, right? So I just took a gamble. I said yes to doing that. I gave my notice to Hairspray. And in that 4-week period where I was about to leave Hairspray and go to do West Side, that's when I saw the notices for Jersey Boys. I submitted, I called, got myself an audition. Right before Hairspray ended, I booked Jersey Boys. So I was able to go into the regional production of West Side Story with a little bit of comfort, knowing that I was doing this new show. I had no idea it was going to be a hit, though.
Did you know Des before that?
Not at all. First time meeting him, and I remember being like, wow, this guy really has his stuff together. And it was also, they had just done a regional premiere production in California. So when I joined for the Broadway...
Oh, did they do it at La Jolla?
They did it at La Jolla, but I was doing Hairspray at the time when they did that. So when they moved to New York, I was one of like 3 people added to the show. So I was like, going in there being like, oh, it's a brand new musical where I'm going to get to like, really breathe in and get to like create where I'm going to go. And they were like, okay, so you move in from this one to that, and you're going to this. They knew everywhere I entered and exited. They knew every other role I was going to play. Like it was already planned out. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is how it works, when they really have their stuff together.
What was it like when you found out that it was going to be the hit that it was?
I still didn't really believe it. When you're in it, you don't really, hear the hype, but you don't really get the hype because you're in it, And you're like, whatever, we literally pulled this show out of nowhere and like have made, we're just kind of like a very small cast too, Jersey Boys was. But I remember when when it was a 20 award night, and Titus Burgess was like, what do you think? Do you think we're going to win? And I was like, we're going to win. And I was like looking in the mirror because we shared a dressing room, and I was like, we're going to win this. And sure enough, we did. Thank God, because otherwise I would not have been, good with my my crystal ball moments. But no, but it was, that moment was when I knew, like, okay, we got something really special and it's going to go far.
What is the moment that you most remember in Jersey Boys that you hold on to?
When I came to New York, the dean of the Tisch School of the Arts became a mentor of mine. Kind of like looked out after me and made sure that I was, continuing my education and graduating, and made sure that I made it to the finish line. And she was always somebody like always in the background, encouraging me and having few meetings every now and then, every other semester, about my progress at NYU and my dreams and everything that I wanted to accomplish. And I didn't tell her that I had gotten the show, but that first opening night, it was after the strike. There was a strike. There was flowers there, and it was from the dean of Tisch School of the Arts, and she somehow knew that this moment was happening for me, and it was like one of those full circle moments where you realize that it does take a village. It does take other people investing in you and believing in you. And just when you don't think they are, people are watching and people are, happy for you. So that's the moment that will always stick with me, like feeling like, this isn't a moment that I'm just having alone. Other people are celebrating this.
What happened next? Were you able to live down the Jersey Boy hype, or did you try? And have you tried for other musicals to go to the next level?
Yeah, well, I've done other things. Like right after Jersey Boys, I did production with Cirque du Soleil. I went to create a brand new musical with them that they toured it for a year. And then I started getting asked to reunite with the original Jersey Boys on tour, and that kind of became like my life. I just started to tour with the Midtown Men, and we toured for over a decade. And within that time, I've done shows, like little by little. I did The View Upstairs off Broadway, which...
Oh, I saw that. That was fabulous.
Thank you so much. They have a great original soundtrack that I'm on. They did a good job with that. And I've done other things. I did a show called Trading Places at the Alliance in Atlanta, Georgia. Moments where I'm being able to create brand new roles in shows while I sing on the road. It's been an interesting life that has developed from the Jersey Boys' success.
I have to ask you my favorite question.
Oh.
They say that eyes are the windows of the soul, but I think songs are.
Okay.
What song or cycle of songs says who Michael Longoria is?
That's funny. I'm ever evolving. I'm constantly listening to new music and new artists, and I'm always listening to the radio. But I think the developing people were Mariah Carey for me, like listening to Mariah Carey in the 90s, like listening to those R&B groups. SWV specifically was amazing. All those 90s girl groups really had me going when I was really learning how to sing.
But what song is the essence of you?
The essence of me. Oh, that's such a good question. I don't know. Maybe a Celine Dion song, something that just soars like she does. And all of her songs are me, I would say. Anything Celine Dion.
How did the first album come apart?
It came apart in my head. No, I did. It was called Broadway Brick by Brick. It was all Broadway songs arranged by John McDaniel, and it had a bit of a Latino flair. I had a lot of mariachi influence, some trumpets to kind of give that Latin flair from my hometown. And then I did the Christmas album, which I'm performing on December 1st, some of it, Merry Christmas, Darling, which was all 60s inspired Christmas songs.
If you could play a role, or if you could do a show by a certain songwriter, what would it be?
I would love to work with Elton John. He writes great music for theater. When I was first coming up in New York, I would go to see Aida, Elton John's Aida. And that was my introduction to his writing as a theater songwriter. And I've just always been really fond of his work. I know he just wrote the music to Tammy Faye on Broadway. So it would be awesome to create something brand new with somebody like that.
Well, you're going to love one of our guests that's coming on is Heather Headley.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? She's literally like the best.
I got the call today.
Oh my gosh, tell her that she has a big fan of me. I saw like all of her preview performances, her opening night, all those things. I was, a college freshman, selling merchandise. And when everybody was dismissed for lunch break, which was a long break, I would sit there on those steps and watch that show every night. It was awesome.
Is there a role in a show that you'd like to take on?
I would just like to do new works, brand new things. I feel like the old stuff has been done, and it's awesome to see it, in regional theaters and stuff. But for me, I feel like brand new works is where I'm going to soar.
And is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
Just that, this is my first time doing a solo show at 54 Below. Oh, it is? The very first time. I've guest performed there before, like one song here and there. It's always been, something that was so prestigious and so, I don't know, scary for me to think, I got to do a show there one day. So like I've kind of avoided it because it's such a step up. But now I'm ready to do it, and I'm really getting some great songs and a great band together. to really have a good night of music, so it's going to be nice to have people come. It's the weekend after Thanksgiving. It's a Sunday, to just kick back with your friends and enjoy a meal or some drinks and me singing my heart out.
I would like to thank my guest, Michael Longoria, today. Go see him at 54 Below, December 1st. You will be put into the Merry Christmas holiday mood. I'd like to thank Magda Katz for always making us look and sound good. I'd like to thank Ramel and the Hotel Edison for giving us a home to live in. And I'm Susanna Bowling, and this is Live from the Hotel Edison.